Hey guys, just a little bit of a rant video today, nothing special. Sometimes when something injustice happens in the world or even in our own country, we get mad about it at first and then we forget about it. But that's just part of human nature. There's always something new happening in current events and we just kind of forget about what's happened already, unless we're reminded of them of course. Which is why I'm here to remind you that Roe v. Wade is still overturned. But even worse than that, a medical abortion pill, specifically mifepristone, has been challenged recently and we may see a countrywide ban on the pill. Well, actually at the time of making this video, that has not happened, and the Supreme Court froze lower court rulings on its restriction decisions. A win for now, but it may come up again in the future, and considering we have always had access to this drug, it's not really a win, but more like not a loss yet. Important to note that it's still possible we lose access in the future, though that likely won't happen for a while. Anyway, the reason I brought this up is because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we even have to worry about access to basic healthcare drugs such as mifepristone. You never know who's going to try to interfere with your life, even if it's none of their business. Just goes to show that we just can't take anything for granted anymore. For every step we take that makes humanity a better place, there's always going to be people trying to take that away, just because they're offended by it. So okay, what even is mifepristone anyway? Well, it's used in combination with misoprostol for two different purposes. First, it is used to induce an abortion at early stages, usually sometime in the first trimester. Second, it is used to expel the fetus after a miscarriage has occurred. Yep, you heard that right, it is also a miscarriage drug, which would also be affected if this drug were to ever be banned. Let me remind everyone again that the restrictions on abortion are never ever what they seem to be. It's always going to be more extreme than what's on paper. There are always countless instances of women trying to get abortion before the time frame designated by the state, for example, the heartbeat law or 6 weeks. And it just never happens that way because lawmakers and the court will always try to block it further, not to mention the vagueness of what's written down would never align with the proper healthcare procedures. I've mentioned a few cases in previous videos, one in which a woman went into critical conditions because doctors couldn't abort a fetus that was going to die anyway just because it still had a weak heartbeat, and another story in which a woman had to endure grueling pain because a baby she wanted had a miscarriage and she couldn't remove the corpse from inside of her due to tighter laws against abortion. Restrictions to abortions as created by politicians instead of doctors will always have more consequences than what's on the surface, and mifepristone is no exception. That second story I mentioned, it's going to be that but much worse. Millions of women are going to miscarriage and could die because the drug used for a miscarriage is the same as that of a first trimester abortion. But Professor Stick, women can still get the body removed surgically. Yeah, really? You think that's sufficient? That millions of women, all of whom will just magically have access to surgery, they will all just have the ability to afford it, schedule it with their surgeons, and have that preparedness to go through surgery? Absolutely not, especially when we have a much less invasive alternative option in the form of a pill that people can take at home and can resolve a miscarriage without doctors or anesthetics. You'd be insane to think that surgery is even remotely close to being a proper alternative. Of course, those aren't your only two options as a woman undergoing miscarriage. Option 3, you can wait for your body to naturally expel the fetal corpse on its own, a process that can be incredibly painful and can last from a couple of days to a few weeks depending on the type of miscarriage, and in the worst case scenario can last months. And along the way, you can suffer from heavy bleeding and infection, and you guessed it, death is a possibility. And that's what these lawmakers don't understand. Mifepristone is not just for abortion, but it's going to be banned for its abortion capabilities, and along with that, all the other things that it does will be banned along with it. And that's the thing I can't stand out of all of this. Lawmakers simply do not know healthcare, and they're trying to make laws to determine how healthcare should work. And as a result, millions of people will suffer for it. Optimally, what we should be doing is returning the decision of medical care back to the doctors and healthcare providers. I wouldn't want anyone except doctors to determine my health. If this were any other field, we'd have big issues with this. For example, if I'm diagnosed with cancer, I wouldn't want a politician to tell me how to receive cancer treatment. If I get Parkinson's, I wouldn't want a politician to tell me how to manage that. I would want to discuss that with my doctor and my doctor only, and the same goes with abortion and miscarriage management. Why in the world would I want anyone else telling me how I should treat my own body other than my doctor? It's ridiculous because this is one of the grossest invasion of privacy I've ever seen in politics. In a country where there are so many other problems such as the wealth gap, lack of social security, terrible unemployment options, high costs of healthcare and education, gun violence, climate change, corruption, etc., 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 we have politicians wasting their time on restricting abortions. But then that's basically just the Republican Party in a nutshell. Whenever we take one step forward, they're trying to pull us 2 steps back. Look, I'm glad that mifepristone didn't end up getting banned, but the fact that we even had to worry about it is concerning. The fact that there was even a risk of that happening should be much more mind-blowing than it is. The default shouldn't be, oh, this important drug might be banned, so the recent block is a victory for us. No, instead we should be outraged that this drug has even been under review to begin with. In the efforts of hindering women's healthcare, we sure aren't going to be making any progress. Ideally, we should be researching and coming up with even better ways for basic healthcare procedures for women such as pregnancy and abortions, but all that is now being hindered. That's the point of science though, right? To make progress. But now we can't even do that. Thanks a lot.